Hey, we're here at the NAMM show. I'm with Matt from Roswell Pro Audio.
Company's name is Roswell Pro Audio. We're named after the city of New Mexico. And so we've got a kind of a wide line of microphones, and the reason we have so many is that they all sound different. And I think for some people that might sound counterintuitive, but for me, microphones are like paintbrushes. You may have used that kind of comparison before.
Yeah.
But I always ask guitar players, for example, we just did a giveaway here and I asked all the guitar players to hold their hands up. And I said, now how many of you have more than one guitar? Keep your hands up. And all the hands stayed up because no one has just one guitar.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, now for all those people who have lots of guitars, how many of them sound exactly the same? And everyone's like, what? That's stupid.
Yeah,
Why
of
would I
course.
have 3 guitars that sound exactly the same? And I said, yes, that's my point. Microphones are the same as that. They're like paintbrushes, and you sometimes need blue and you sometimes need brown, and it depends what you're trying to paint. So what we do with microphones is try to make them to have different characters and different sounds. And so the sound of a microphone, and these are all large diaphragm condensers. For the most part, the sound of a large diaphragm condenser is determined by what kind of capsule it is. And so we have 4 mics in this series that we call the Mini K series, and they use 4 different capsules. And they use different circuits as well. But that's kind of an unusual thing that you won't see in a lot of other product lines, especially this price point, because all of these short microphones here are all under $500 US. And they're not imports. We actually do all the assembly in California. And for those who don't know us, my background is a DIY microphone kit company called Mic Parts. And so we've been working with the question of how do I take this microphone circuit and maximize its sonic potential? There's a lot of big words. How do we make this sound as good as we can?
Yeah.
And sometimes the answer is, at least in part, what components you use in the circuit. And so we kind of pull out all the stops. We buy all these vintage film capacitors by the truckload, old Japanese hi-fi audio resistors, some surplus from the defense industry. There's a lot of really amazing parts that can be put into a microphone, and they really do matter to the sound. And so of the Mini K product line, I'll do a very brief review. This one is a kick drum mic, sort of dedicated for kick drum. And so not of interest to someone who sings or plays guitar probably, but these other 4 are the K47, K47X, the Mini K67X, and the Mini K87. The most neutral of all of these, and the one that is probably the best starting point if you have no idea which of these you might want, would be the Mini K87, because what we found is that microphones that are very neutral tend to complement a wide variety of voices. And when I say voices, I mean literal voices or guitars or other instruments. So we've got a famous jazz sax player, Ralph Moore, loves this on his saxophone. The Canadian metal artist, Devin Townsend, loves this on his voice. We've got Mike Garolas, an LA session bassist, loves this on his upright acoustic bass.
So it's kind of the general purpose or a starting point.
It's a great starting point.
Yeah.
Yeah, but don't let the neutrality suggest that it's something you're not interested in. Because the truth is, your job in a session is to get a really good sounding take of whatever it is. And if the only microphone you have is noisy, or it's too bright, too sibilant, too piercing, too thin in the bass, then you're going to be spending weeks with EQ and de-essing and trying to fix something that sounds bad. It's so much easier to take a mic like that usually just sounds good no matter what you throw at it.
Yep.
And then some of these other ones have something to enhance them. So the K67X is a little darker and has more of what you might say character. It's second harmonic distortion.
Okay.
So distortion, now you've probably got videos educating people about distortion, right?
Oh yeah.
There's, in a simple sense, and you can point to other videos that go about this better, but there's quote unquote good kinds and bad kinds, and to some degree, second harmonic distortion is usually good because it sounds like saturation, like richness.
I see. It's more musical. I've heard it explained,
musical,
right?
Yeah. Whereas third harmonic can be out of key, can clash, can sound harsh. And of course, you have too much of either of them, that's just broken. And that's not what we're talking about here. What this does is it adds a musically useful amount of second harmonic. And it comes across as richness or saturation. And then the Mini K47 has a transformerless circuit and has very fast, accurate transient response. It has a relatively audible bump, presence bump around 4, 5, 6 kilohertz.
Okay.
And that bump corresponds to people's sensitivity zone in their hearing.
Yep.
For those who are familiar with the SM57, it's a Shure Dynamic, very well known, nicely made, and everyone probably already owns one. That mic has a similar kind of presence bump. Now, that's not to say this sounds like that. This has a lot more low end and a lot more top end above that. But the character of this is that 4 to 6K bump, which can make a guitar come to the front of the mix.
Yep.
It can make a thin sounding voice sound like it has more body.
So whereas this one's more neutral, maybe a little bit more smooth in the top end, this one may help something cut through the mix if it's having trouble doing so.
Exactly.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah. So this is definitely more colored.
Cool.
And for some voices, you'll try both of those and you'll say, "Oh my God, this sounds like magic." And for some, you'll say that's too much of a good thing, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's why we make all these different flavors. So the 47X has a K47 capsule, but we tune them differently. So that presence bump is a little milder, and then it also has the saturation circuit like the K67X does. So the shorthand notation is the X in these two stands for transformer. So these two have a transformer-based circuit, and the Mini K47 and the Mini K87 have a transformer-less circuit. And one of the differences there is transformerless tends to have faster, more accurate transient response, whereas these do a little bit of transient compression in addition to that harmonic saturation thing.
Cool.
So where do people use these? People love this, like Bill Payne of Little Feat, legendary American piano player, has a pair of these on his home studio grand piano. The band also had a pair of these on drum overheads. So that's a fairly versatile difference. A lot of small room home recording drummers love this on drum overheads because its polar pattern is a little bit narrower than true cardioid, and so it tends to hear a little bit less of the sound bouncing off the walls in a small room.
Yep.
And then the K67X is amazing on voices, especially those who have any kind of nasality or any kind of sibilance, because the frequency response of this has a little dip around 2K and another little dip around 6, 7K. So that's why I say it's a little darker. But it's also amazing on guitar cabs. So the same band, Little Feat, had these on both guitar cabs on tour. And the guitars sounded amazing.
Nice.
So,
I love that mentality though, because so many people in my comments and everywhere else ask, what's the best mic for vocals? What's the best mic for guitar? What's the best mic for anything? And there isn't one. And I like that approach that, okay, if you want something neutral and you only can get one mic, maybe you start with something a little bit more neutral.
Safe choice.
But in reality, it is like a painter has a special paintbrush for edging and special paintbrush for, I'm not a painter, but I'm sure they have a whole tool set, an arsenal.
Absolutely.
And each tool is used for a specific purpose.
Yeah.
So your voice may be good sounding on this mic, this mic, this mic, or this mic. You basically just have to know what sound you're going for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's, I know, I understand full well, I played drums and recorded myself for years before I started making gear, and I fully understand that it sucks, especially for the drummers out there, because you don't need one mic, you need like 16. And I get that that's expensive.
Yeah.
And so it is self-serving for me to say, buy 4 mics, and that way you're prepared. But what we do is we've kept all these under $500.
It's amazing.
And they're very simple to use because there aren't any switches or complexity. You just, we say point and shoot simple. You set them up, point them at a source, press record. They come with really nice shock mounts, and they come with a very nice case too, so the accessories are not shortcut at all.
Yep.
So they're really good problem solvers, and they're also being used on records. This one's on the new Tenacious D record.
Oh, cool.
So, and a lot more that I'm not even sure I know about, but I get emails from people all the time. They're like, hey, watch out for this. So.
Yeah. Well, and I just want to make sure that people understand that this is not like, you don't only sell mics in this price range. These come from a company who's known for a wide variety of high-end mics, and I love that you're putting that same intentionality into the mics that are available at a more, accessible price range.
Yeah,
so that's really cool.
What we're supposed to do as a manufacturer is, come out with our premium line that's all handmade in California, and then come out with our studio home project line that is, whispered, made overseas, for $40 a mic. But we didn't get that memo, so we just make them all in California.
Cool.
And we really do try to make them as good as we possibly can, and there's really no shortcuts, except in the sense that these don't have a bunch of extra features. But the truth is, you buy a multi-pattern mic and you leave it in cardioid 80% of the time, 90% of the time anyway.
Yep.
So why not just eliminate the cost of all of that?
Yeah.
Make it cardioid.
Right, save on the circuits for the switches and all of that, and give you the essentials without sacrificing too much on quality.
Yeah, and we have options for multi-pattern and other things for those people who need it. So.
Great. So my advice might be, if you're unsure which mic to get, you sort of listen to different styles of voices, and you have some demos of these on your website.
We do.
So maybe if I have a really bright sounding voice, or I have a sort of dull sounding voice, find the mic that sounds good on someone else with that sort of quality of voice and helps bring out, the good sound. Where can they find those demos, by the way?
Yeah, so thank you for that. So on the Roswell website, there's in the top menu, I think it's media, and there's a bunch of videos, and there's different kinds. There's like standalone demo videos. I know we'll have the same singer come in and sing through all the mics, so you can compare them that way. But every month or so, we do a broadcast, a live stream broadcast called the Virtual Showroom, because it is hard about buying mics that you can't really hear them. So we'll go to a studio in LA and we'll do an hour-long show where we'll spend 20 minutes talking about what microphones we're going to hear. We'll spend some time on education, which I think your audience might really appreciate. Like, how do I pick this one versus that one on this source? What am I listening for? And then we'll do demos like, here's the solo vocal on these two, and people in the comments will be like, oh, I like that one. And then we'll bring in the guitar and they'll say, oh, now I like that one. And that's a really good takeaway, because it's like you're trying to make a finished song, not a solo vocal. I mean, most of the time.
Yep.
Right? So it sounds this way all by itself, but you need to think as a producer in the context of the entire mix, how does this voice through this mic fit the rest of the arrangement? Is it a solo acoustic guitar or is it a 50-piece orchestra? What frequencies do I have left to work with, and how does this fit that mix? So we'll do demos like that, and then the other third of it is performance. So we'll have the artist, and it could be anywhere from a singer-songwriter to female vocal and piano. We had a couple of jazz quartets. We're going to have a string section. So there's a wide variety of stuff in order to demonstrate versatility, but also give people a lot of experience with what these mics sound like on different choices.
Great. And send me a link to that. I'll include that in the description below this video, so you can check that out if you're interested in learning. It sounds like it's a great learning experience in addition to showing off your mics. That's great. I love it.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for your time, man.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.